Good evening. The California Department of Education moving forward with changes to the state's health and sex education framework, a change that'll now encourage teachers to talk about gender identity, among other topics, with kindergartners.
California Department of Education unanimously approved new guidelines for elementary school grades. The guidelines are about sex trafficking, sexual orientation, and how to support transgender and LGBTQ students.
The new health and sex education framework tells teachers that students as young as kindergarten can identify as transgender and offers tips on how to talk about different identities.
The kindergartners came home very confused about whether or not you can pick your gender, whether or not they really were a boy or a girl.
The information our state board seems to want to give our third and fourth graders is too graphic to even be shown on the nightly news.
Using close-up illustrations of children's and adults' private areas that would be shown to kids starting in third grade, other books included topics such as gender fluidity, body changes, and guidelines to sexuality.
My daughter went home crying, shaking, so afraid that she could turn into a boy.
In general, how do you feel about sex education in schools for your 7-year-old daughter?
What does this look like in the classroom? I mean, some people might be watching this right now and saying, oh, but children in grade 1 or 2 are too young to be learning about sexual orientation. What does this look like in that kind of, in a classroom? How do you talk to children about this? What does it look like?
I don't think that children are too young in grade 1 or 2 or kindergarten or when they're 3 years old. Mm-hmm. I think that children actually are very resilient and completely open-minded and non-judgmental.
Answer me why you're teaching pedophilia in school to 9th graders.
Teaching what?
Pedophilia, pederasty, right here.
Pederasty, as I discussed with you before, twice in my office when you come to view the materials, I've explained to you that this is done because we are talking about historical perspectives of how gender relations and different types of sexual orientations have existed in history. So this is something that's occurred in history, and so this is really important for us to include. Right.
Hey, when we're older, let's get married. It's Garnet from Steven Universe!
Kids, don't be racist. You have to acknowledge racism to work against it.
You're right. I can do that.
I can't believe someone would be hurt like that, just because they're black. Racism is so unfair. Buster, it happens everywhere. I was talking to Mrs. McGrady the other day. She said there's a really long history of black people not being treated fairly in this country. It has to stop.
Well, racism is like a disease. If you don't treat it, it's just gonna get worse.
Wait, if racism is a disease, can I get it?
Buster, don't worry. This isn't about you.
Actually, it is. It's about all of us. It's not enough to just say, I'm not racist. It's not my problem. We have to actively fight against racism.
Are we going to ask why kids are apparently learning about Thomas Edison?
Thomas Edison!
Ugh, and not learning about Lewis Latimer? These textbooks are incomplete. There were black Roman warriors, black medieval knights, black classical musicians, black cowboys, black fighter pilots. Where are they? I worry about you humans because you only live, about 100 years? You rely on these stories to know your own history. Thanks to systemic racism, most of your storytellers prioritize white accomplishments, which leaves you with an incomplete picture.
Cheers for Drag Queen Story Hour at the Eagle Rock Library. It's what the name promises, drag queen reading stories to children in libraries, schools, and bookstores. Pickle says she couldn't wait to read to the kids. She says Drag Queen Story Hour is a literacy program. The goal is to get kids excited about books, and particularly books like gender fluidity and or about gender fluidity and giving kids queer role models.
All right, so this is the last book that we're going to read. It's called This Day in June. And I love this book because every time I read it, I get more and more excited about the big Pride Parade. Who's been to the Pride Parade before? It's on June 30th this year downtown. It's always a great time. I will definitely be there. I hope to see all of you there.
Now, does anybody in this room know how to twerk? All right, well, it's quite important to the story, so I will just give you a very quick demonstration. All you need to do is you just stand with your feet sort of shoulder width apart, like so. Okay, and I'll show you at the side so you get a better view there. And you crouch down into this sort of position here, so your bum's sticking out. You'll be taking this all in. And then you just move your bum up and down like that, and that's twerking.
Readings take place at libraries, museums, and other cultural centers in more than 30 cities across the country. Some are small affairs, but many, like the one in Washington, D.C., play to full houses.
It's just really been obvious that there was a need for this in our community.
The library partnered with the D.C. chapter of Drag Queen Story Hour to bring the family-friendly events to the nation's capital.
We are grooming the new generation of Americans.
This is going to be the grooming of the next generation.
But then the library revealed this man, Albert Garza, a registered sex offender, was among those participating. He served time for aggravated sexual assault of an 8-year-old in 2008.
Well, it certainly has drawn a lot of attention from mayoral candidates to the governor himself. The revelation that a registered sex offender participated in a story time for children might be surprising in and of itself. And while that volunteer violated library policy 3 times, we've learned the sex offender didn't do anything illegal by volunteering to work with children.
What has this world come to? It's come to a world where drag kids actually exist.
And people do ketamine on a couch.
Please welcome Desmond Napoles, a.k.a. Desmond is amazing.
Lactatia is the deviest diva you could ever think of. Hello, my name is Nemes. I am 9 years old, and I am a drag princess named Lactatia. As Lactatia, I lip sync and I dance and I vogue and I spin around in my poofy dresses. I just be nice and gracious to everyone. My interest in drag sparked when my sister one day she came into my room and said, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, Emma told me that this is this RuPaul's Drag Race thing and we have to watch it right now. Today's a special day because I'm starting blockers. They stop female hormone things.
So how sure are you that you want to do this?
Positive. Doing this for myself.
This is this is what's gonna help you, okay?
3, 2, 1.
Breathe.
Where's Brett's dad?
Max goes to Boston Children's Hospital, which opened the first clinic for transgender youth in the U.S. Since 2007, they've treated hundreds of children and teens.
In the past couple of years, our volume has just about doubled.
I'm a girl.
Who told you you were a girl?
Mommy.
When did she tell you you were a girl?
'Cause I love girls.
Oh, I see. So mommy told you you were a girl?
My name is Jacob, and I'm a 9-year-old transgender American. My question is...
All right, hold on.
The idea that an 8-year-old child or a 10-year-old child decides, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be zero discrimination.
Most people seem to walk away having a good time.
Start them young, right? Start them young, right?
You know, the Supreme Court decision on Friday in favor of same-sex marriage, you wonder if children are sophisticated enough to wrap their head around something like this. So we went out on the street today to ask kids what they think and what they know, and here they are. Kids share their thoughts on same-sex marriage.
Could you tell me what gay marriage is?
It's when two men and two women get married.
So what do you think gay marriage is?
When a boy and a boy get married and a girl get married.
What exactly do you do in your bowling ball cleaning business?
I asked, would you like your balls polished or clean?
I had that same job at about 22.
I have a girlfriend.
You think it's me? Oh, no. We just met, and he has not paid any of my bills.
Kom ind for voksne Emilie, Martin V, Bob, Ulla og Martin B. Om håret krasser ned omkring dilleren. Martin V, hvad siger du til det? Egentlig ikke nødvendigvis. Der er nogen...
Now stare at that cat clock and massage your dinger.
No, Nick's grandmother gave him that clock.
She knew what she was doing.
Yeah, she did. Okay.
Oh, what a little clock tease. Her eyes are darting back and forth, thinking, meow, meow, who's got the cream?
Me, I've got the cream.
Yeah.
You're 7 years old and someone is stroking your penis. It feels good. Even though you don't have a name for what that is, it feels good. And when I first said this years ago, people were like, you're crazy, because everybody wants to believe it's like sexual assault and you're being thrown up against the wall and you're being raped. And I have said for years, if the abuser is any good, you won't even know it's happened. You will be in it and you won't even know it's happened. And if the abuser is any good, he or she is going to make you feel...
Even though I know the jury found him to do some horrific things, I was like, his life is over. All of these young boys, it was terrible for them as well. There are no winners. Does someone like Sandusky deserve sympathy? I mean, in your experience, are people who prey on children, are they misunderstood?
Should consuming child porn be legal? I think that would be, yes, more legal and more ethically consistent. Yes, 100%. I have yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child pornography should be illegal. Actual child pornography.
They're pretty hot. And you can say whatever you want about me. It's not my fault. I didn't make them do that. They did that. That's the point. That's the whole point of the movie, is that you're supposed to be sitting there thinking, look at the blonde one. You're supposed to be sitting there holding these two thoughts in your head, and one that these are kids, and the other that they're hot.
Magnus Hirschfeld was one of the founding fathers of modern sexology, and was one of the founding fathers of the modern gay and lesbian movement.
He founded the first gay organization in the world in 1897 in Berlin. He himself was a homosexual.
Magnus Hirschfeld was born to a large Jewish family on May 14, 1868. Hirschfeld moved to Charlottenburg in Berlin. It was there that he founded the Scientific Humanitarian Committee, or SHC, probably the first organization campaigning for LGBT rights. In 1919, in the new Weimar Republic, Hirschfeld founded the Institute for Sexual Science in a mansion on the banks of the Spree River in Berlin. The scope of the institute was much larger than that of the Scientific Humanitarian Committee.
Berlin in the 1920s was the sex capital of Europe.
It looked like a normal downtown area of Central Europe until 5 o'clock, and then everything would begin to change utterly. Places that you hadn't noticed would turn into outrageous strip clubs. The basements of the restaurants would be homosexual or lesbian romper rooms and sex clubs.
1923 marked the founding of a third gay rights organization in Berlin, the Human Rights League. The last project Hirschfeld ever founded was the World League for Sexual Reform in 1926. It held prominent conventions in Copenhagen, London, Vienna, and Brno, Czechoslovakia in the following years. He put forward the idea of sexual intermediacy, proposing that all human characteristics, physical and psychological, occur on a spectrum between masculine and feminine. His exile was sealed on May 6, 1933, when Nazi students plundered the Institute for Sexual Science. Several days later, they burned many of its books and records at the Opernplatz. With Hitler's rise to power came a crackdown on Germany's LGBT community. The culture that had emerged in the late 19th century and flourished in the liberal atmosphere of Weimar Germany was crushed in a few short years.
In Babylon, the Pharisees codified their oral traditions into the Babylonian Talmud.
In the Talmud, in Treatise Sanhedrin, an extensive passage describes the right of the Pharisee to kill anyone, just as long as he did so indirectly. The Talmud also encourages seduction of unwed adolescent girls called designated bondmaids. But it's important how such rapes are performed. With the designated bondmaid, one is guilty only in the case of natural connection, but not in the case of perverse connection. The Pharisees reasoned that rape in a perverted manner is outside the jurisdiction of the law.
In 3 of the major treatises of the Talmud, are found extensive passages which give legal endorsement to seduce and marry 3-year-old baby girls. In fact, many of the greatest rabbis of the Talmud, including Simeon ben Yochai, upheld this privilege. Today in Israel, thousands of Jews go to Meron every year to venerate the memory of Simeon ben Yochai, one of the most respected rabbis in the history of Judaism.
In one of dozens of endorsements of child sex, Simeon ben Yochai said, "A proselyte under the age of 3 years and a day is permitted to marry a priest." Agreeing with ben Yochai, the great Rabbah said, "When a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing, for when the girl is less than this, 3 years and a day, it is as if one put the finger into the eye." The footnote to this passage says, "As tears come to the eye again and again, so does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years." The same section confirms that sexual activity with small boys is in the same category. The intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act.
So I am a transgender and non-binary rabbi, and I was the first ordained by mainstream movement rabbi. There is a text from the Mishnah, which is the very earliest layer of what becomes Jewish law from like the 1st or 2nd century. So it's like a 2,000-year-old text. And they're talking about the tumtum, which is one of the genders beyond male or female in Jewish classical texts. So not everyone realizes, but there are actually 6 genders in Judaism. So not everyone realizes, but there are actually 6 genders in Judaism.
In the Halachah, in Yeridea, that's the 2nd section of the 4 sections of Halacha called the Shulchan Aruch, the set table. In chapter 266, Halacha 3, 4, 5, and 6, he describes how the circumcision is to be done. He says after the cutting, the mohel does what is called mitzitza. Mitzitza means to suck, and it means doing so with his mouth.
The practice is called Masitza Bapeh, where a moil uses his mouth to suck blood away from the baby boy's genitals after circumcision.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידש לנו וציוונו על אבינו. אמן.
This morning, the Supreme Court recognized that the Constitution guarantees marriage equality. In doing so, they've reaffirmed that all Americans are entitled to the equal protection of the law, that all people should be treated equally, regardless of who they are or who they love.
thought it was amazing. It was incredible. It was fabulous. I'm like that Lady Gaga moment. It's like stunning, amazing, impeccable, genius.
Can you believe it? From the revolutionary of our time. I love you so much. Thank you for being here.
There's a push on the left to allow younger kids to vote in the next presidential election. House Democrats tried to shift the voting age in federal elections from 18 to 16.
They believe the voting age should be changed to 16 years old. Democrats from Dearborn and Ann Arbor introduced the bill in the State House and State Senate.
16-year-olds, 17-year-olds are ready. They're engaged. They want to get involved. They want to have their voices heard. I think it's a great idea.
I think it's really important to capture kids when they're in high school,
Lawmakers are now reconsidering a 30-year-old law on HIV disclosure. Right now, it is a felony if someone does not disclose their HIV status to a sexual partner.
But some say that law is a form of discrimination. CBS 13's Macy Jenkins spoke with a senator who says Californians are at risk without it.
This is about a new California law which is causing a major controversy. That it will now make it no longer a felony to knowingly and without disclosure expose sexual partners to HIV. Exposing someone would now be classified as a misdemeanor as of January 1st. The law previously punished people who intentionally exposed or infected others with HIV by up to 8 years in prison. The new legislation will lower jail time to a maximum of 6 months. The new law will also eliminate the penalty for knowingly donating HIV-infected blood.
It lowers the penalties for certain sexual acts that have been committed by a person who is an adult onto a minor. What are your thoughts about that?
So I don't know any mother or father out there that would condone or support a bill that allowed a 24-year-old to have sexual relationships with your 14-year-old child. So it's a liberal San Francisco Democrat that had introduced SB 45, and he claims it will bring parity and protect LGBTQ students or individuals.
The age range that we're talking about here is 14 to 17-year-olds with someone who is up to 10 years older.
I'm here to tell a story about the tremendous contributions that were made by the Jewish mob during for the betterment of the welfare of the Jewish people from the 20th century going forward.
These were arrests on a massive scale. Amongst those taken into custody by the FBI were city mayors, politicians and religious leaders. It's thought that religious charities controlled by prominent rabbis were used to launder cash. Prosecutors say one rabbi was dealing in human kidneys for transplant for a decade, buying them from vulnerable people at a huge profit.
A CBS News investigation has uncovered a loophole that allows accused and convicted American pedophiles to escape justice by moving to Israel.
Exploiting a process called law of return, whereby any Jewish person can move to Israel and automatically gain citizenship. The ease with which pedophiles seem able to use this law as an escape route haunts victims like Mendy Hawk, who says he was abused from age 8 by a teacher at an Orthodox Jewish school in Los Angeles. Yom Tov pled guilty in 2002 to sexually abusing and committing lewd acts against 3 other boys. He served jail time, but when he was released, he violated his probation and, according to JCW, fled to Israel with help from individuals within the Orthodox Jewish community. JCW tracked Yom Tov down and confronted him with a hidden camera in Jerusalem, where he admitted to illegally fleeing the United States with help and using a fake passport to enter Israel. Yom Tov's case isn't uncommon in the Orthodox community.
The rabbis say it's, you know what, he promised he's going to go for therapy, he's never going to do it again. Boom, he's in another community. A few years later, he's at the same thing, and we hear more allegations that the person continued to abuse children.
And often, those abusers end up in Israel. Caro is accused of abusing more children when he got to Israel.
I was 4 or 5 years old,
My mother was on bed rest. My father's a rabbi, so he wasn't really home. He used to come to our house. We used to play games, and then it became sexual. He also threatened me he would kill my parents. He would choke me. He would hold me. He would kidnap me.
The U.S. Department of Justice declined to comment on specific cases, but praised their relationship with Israel's law enforcement. That is the problem. If American officials don't try to get accused pedophiles from Israel, then they simply escape justice and leave children at risk. He had help, according to JCW, to flee the country through Mexico and then get a passport, a fake passport there to immigrate to Israel. So
These are elaborate schemes.
They are, and they need a lot of people to pull off.
These are elaborate schemes.
They are, and they need a lot of people to pull off.
Well, again, read any mainstream report, and they indicate that Comet Ping Pong Pizza was somehow linked to this fake story and has no relation to anyone involved. But the truth is, that's not true either. What media is ignoring is that the Comet Ping Pong Pizza place is actually referenced in the Podesta emails at least a dozen or so times, and that the owner of that place, James Alefantis, is a friend of John Podesta. He was actually named, this is kind of strange, by GQ magazine as one of the top 50 most powerful people in Washington. Yes, we're talking about a pizza parlor owner. Now, to begin, I need to show you a 2007 unclassified FBI document. That document, according to the FBI, contains commonly used symbols by pedophiles to express their preference in children. I want you to see these images here. These are the images. Notice this one on the end, the triangle. That image signifies something called boy love. The pizza place next door to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, Besta Pizza, well, this was their logo until only a few weeks ago. Clearly, you can see that the Besta logo actually contains the same image, I'm going to show you again, as that boy lover image. Interestingly, after Pizzagate investigators pointed this out, Besta Pizza changed their logo, and there it is now. They've removed the triangle. Also, Comet Ping Pong, owned by Alefantis, is the place where a number of performance artists perform regularly. Two of the groups that perform there, who you can see advertised, by the way, on this Comet Ping Pong poster, include a group called Heavy Breathing and another group called Sex Stains. Well, if you check out the YouTube videos by these bands, Heavy Breathing has songs that do joke about pedophilia, and the band Sex Stains has a video that includes, and you see it right there, that same boy lover symbol. It's nearly identical to the one that the FBI does say is a pedophile code symbol for boy love. As I said, there are some strange things there. As for the owner of the pizza place, James Alefantis, well, he was one time in a relationship with David Brock, who ran Media Matters for America. Well, since Pizzagate began to blow up online, he has made his Instagram profile, Jimmy Comet, private. But an archive search of Instagram reveals a number of strange photographs and words with strange and disturbing images associated with them. Look, to the point where we can't show you those pictures. We're not even going to describe them to you because some viewers would find it too disturbing to share on TV. Now let's talk about the Podesta brothers, because remember, it was John Podesta's email that was hacked. In those leaked Podesta emails, John Podesta talks about his close relationship with Dennis Hastert, the former Speaker of the House, who was recently sentenced to 15 months in prison for abusing boys years ago. He was referred to by the judge as a serial child molester. According to the Washington Post, visitors to Tony Podesta's home in Falls Church got an eyeful when they walked into a bedroom at the Podesta residence hung with multiple color pictures by Katie Grannon, a photographer known for documentary-style pictures of naked teenagers in their parents' suburban homes. And to be clear, that just begins to scratch the surface of how strange some of this stuff is. And bear in mind, we can't get into a lot of the real details of it because of the limits on broadcasting this on television. But it is some very strange stuff. Investigators have already proven there's nothing to the story, right? Well, actually, no. And that's what you need to know. For all that is here, there has not been one single public investigation of any of this. Not from local police, not from the FBI, no one. And that has to be the big question. Not for Podesta or for pizza parlor owners, but for law enforcement. Based on what may be or may not be here, the big question is, why hasn't any investigation taken place?
The fact is, accusations of a massive pedophile ring have happened many times before. The Australian government had a massive pedophile scandal, and there was an expose done on it on 60 Minutes, which, to the best of my knowledge, never aired in the United States. We have the Franklin cover-up in the States, which is another very interesting case, in which it was claimed that the entire Institute of Government and the media itself colluded on covering up a pedophile ring, going so far as to call the FBI the orchestrator and architect of the child trafficking ring. Former President Senator John DeCamp was involved in the production of a documentary called A Conspiracy of Silence. It was set to air on May 3, 1994 on the Discovery Channel, exposing a network of religious leaders and Washington politicians who flew children to Washington, D.C. for sex orgies. But right before the show was to air, an unknown congressman threatened the TV cable industry with restrictive legislation if the documentary was aired, and thus it never saw the light of day.
Thank you.
Now you come over here. That's it. Keep going. We're going to stand right next to me. There you go. And then we're going to have...
There you go.
Dad.
Just spread out a little bit, like that gentleman spread out.
You can hold the Bible. Hang it down.
Okay, got some more family people. Come on in. Yeah, we got a crowd. There we go.
Okay, right hand up. Here's the official. Now, guys, look up the center photographer up top. Grandpa's one of the guys.
That's nice of you to say.
No, I'm not saying. He knows I mean.
Oh, that's,
I genuinely mean.
that's good to hear.
What's your name? Hi, Marie. I tell you.
How did you guys make group shot? Come on in.
Do you know what my dad used to say? Your granddaughters have one important job. Take care of the pop. That's the most important one. She's entitled. She's entitled. This is a long day. Don't tell me.
It has recently come to light that this pedophilia is on YouTube as well, with literally, once again, thousands of accounts discussing this stuff openly, sharing videos of young girls spreading their legs, posing in very sexual or precarious positions, and the like. The comment sections of these videos are littered with perverse and sexually explicit comments about young children, and nothing is being done about it.
Shocking allegations against the entertainment industry. In a new interview with the Sunday Times, the former child star alleges that pedophilia has been a real issue in Hollywood.
I will say that over many years, many news organizations have circled this story and faced a great deal of pressure in doing so. And there are now reports emerging publicly about the kinds of pressure that news organizations face in this. And that is real. In the course of this reporting, I was threatened with a lawsuit personally by Mr. Weinstein. And, you know, we've already seen that the Times has been publicly threatened with a suit. I don't want to describe any suits leveled at other organizations that I work with, but you know, certainly this is a considerable amount of pressure that outlets get as well.
And NBC says that, you know, you didn't, that the story wasn't publishable, that it wasn't ready to go by the time that you brought it to them. But obviously it's ready to go by the time you got it into the New Yorker.
I walked into the door at the New Yorker with an explosively reportable piece that should have been public earlier, and immediately, obviously, the New Yorker recognized that, and it is not accurate to say that it was not reportable. In fact, there were multiple determinations that it was reportable at NBC.
And before we end the bulletin, we have some breaking news to bring you. A photograph has just emerged of accused sex abuser Ghislaine Maxwell sitting on a throne at Buckingham Palace with actor Kevin Spacey. This image was obtained exclusively by the Telegraph newspaper in the United Kingdom, and they say it was taken in 2002. The pair were guests of Prince Andrew on a private tour organised for former US President Bill Clinton. Kevin Spacey had been accused but was never convicted of multiple sex offences. Ghislaine Maxwell is alleged to have assisted in grooming minors for sexual abuse at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. So the royal family, that is just another thing that they will be dealing with today. It is bound to make waves in the United Kingdom.
Let's talk about the powerful people in politics that were friends of Jeffrey Epstein, including former President Bill Clinton, who I think records show flew on his jet several times. President Trump is quoted with glowing words about him back in 2002.
Former President Clinton flying on his plane multiple times, being on his private island.
A shocking new report from the New York Times sheds light on the connection between Microsoft founder Bill Gates and the late Jeffrey Epstein. After Gates' name came up in connection with Epstein and MIT Media Lab, Gates gave a statement to the Wall Street Journal where he insisted he did not have any business relationship or friendship with Epstein. But new reporting from the New York Times outlines numerous meetings between Gates and Epstein and a conversation with Bill and Melinda Gates' foundation, a connection between their foundation and J.P. Morgan to set up a charitable fund that would financially benefit Epstein. Gates says, no relationship, nada, nothing. You report these two men met at least 6 times. What does Gates say about that?
Well, I believe that there were more, and he and his spokespeople would not say how many in total they actually met. But this included visits to the mansion, seeing each other in Seattle, flying on Epstein's plane, when we all know Bill Gates has his own $40 million plane.
And Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail.
And last but not least, we have the Hampstead cover-up. The Hampstead case was the most gruesome indictment of this sort of thing I have ever witnessed, with direct accounts from children who were victims of satanic ritual abuse. These children claimed kidnapping, torture, blood rituals, sex, murder, and even cannibalism. The Hampstead cover-up and the implications of it are prime examples of how many different times a child trafficking pedophile ring, a satanically based sex slave ring, has been brought to light by the children affected directly by such madness. I want to include the following audio from the Hampstead case of one of the children who gave a testimony and police confession discussing these actions in her own words. I encourage you to go online and listen to the testimony from these children and the retractions that these children gave, and decide for yourself if you think that these children were lying. Out of respect, I have not included the child's name or face to the alleged victim. I just want to say this once again to reiterate. These children retracted their testimonies, and the claimed perpetrators were never charged with anything.
Who's they? Who's they?
The teachers, the parents, the staff.
Every single teacher or specific teachers?
No, every single. The whole school does it. The whole school, and we got our own church too. So because they do that, because after as I said, we kill babies, we drink their blood, we eat them. Okay. But then after so the social services who are in it, they go to families, So the families can't afford, so they get a baby, but they can't look after it or anything. They can't buy food, or they can't buy clothes. They can't look after it. So the families who sell their children. Yeah. So the social services get them. They say they get them to a foster home, but they don't. Right, okay. So then because our dad, he forces me and to do it, but because we can't, we're not strong enough to cut the baby's head off. He has us to hold the knife, and he puts his hand at the top of our hand, and he helps us to cut the baby's head off, because he's learning. He's teaching me, and so when we're older, to do it to our own children and do this kind of stuff to our own children.
Where is it that happens?
The church, in the kitchen in our church.
And so you were Right.
Maybe.
I was born into a family that believes in this.
And does everyone else think it's a nice Jewish family? From the outside, you appear to be a nice Jewish girl.
Definitely.
And you all are worshiping the devil inside the home?
Right. There's other Jewish families across the country. It's not just my own family.
Really? So what kinds of things? You don't have to give us the gory details, but what kinds of things went on in the family?
Well, there would be rituals in which babies would be sacrificed, and you would have to, you know...
Whose babies?
There were people who bred babies in their family. No one would know about it. A lot of people were overweight, so you couldn't tell if they were pregnant or not, or they would supposedly go away for a while and then come back.
So, you witnessed the sacrifice?
Right. When I was very young, I was forced to participate in that, in which I had to sacrifice an infant.
And the purpose of sacrifice is to what? Is to bring you what? What are you sacrificing for?
For power.
Uh-huh. Power. And so, were you ever used? Were you ever used yourself?
I was molested. I was raped several times. There's a book that I had just come across called Lilith's Cave, which is a book of Jewish mysticism and supernatural. And there's a lot in that book that relates to what I, endured when I was a child.
It is the tendency of all these sources to belittle the person of Jesus by ascribing to him illegitimate birth, magic, and a shameful death. Jesus, according to this article, was considered one of the 3 worst enemies of Judaism who came to an ignoble end. The Talmud says they subjected him to 4 deaths: stoning, burning, decapitation, and strangling. The Talmud also says he is now in hell, punished with boiling hot excrement.
Does this look wholesome to you? This video alone could freak out parents, but the Satanic Temple is trying to reach students by getting into elementary schools nationwide. The group says it's an alternative to a Christian-based after-school program. Number 7's Mark Boyle's been looking into this, and Mark, they say it's a kid-friendly club.
The 10-page Satanic Children's Big Book of Activities features characters named Annabelle and Damien who demonstrate rituals to explain Satanism.
That's right, hard to believe, but that's exactly what they preach here, and this is the parental permission slip that they're handing out so your kid can participate. Here's the After School Satan website. They even have a children's book dedicated to this. Now, they say there are some wholesome activities and lessons to be learned,